Greg Andrick here with another Business Freedom Conversation newsletter. Hey, it's Flamingo Friday. Little pink to brighten up your day. So we got this new newsletter, and it's a pretty good one. So first story out of the box is the post office has increased first-class postage rates by a rate of 13.3%. Take a look at this story. Is that the real inflation rate? I mean, come on. Why isn't the post office only raising it 3.7% like they're trying to tell us? Then the other thing is how government deficits are going to affect the markets and things going forward. Take a look at this one. This is one everybody needs to be prepared for, because what we're looking at is the percentage of tax revenue jumping, and we're already on the brink of having the maximum amount. Basically, according to the World Bank's 14% of tax revenue, and you need to cut back and do austerity. And we're going to rocket past that because our government debt is rolling over, and instead of being less than 1%, it's now like 5%. So more taxes. Be prepared. Then the next one is, I think this is really interesting because this article touched on so many elements of business. I think every business owner would find this very valuable to see what General Mills, a $20 billion in revenue company, has done to post an increase during all this wild, crazy, up and down economic issues that we have going on. And it's an interview of the CEO of General Mills. And then the last story is mortgage rates have hit 8%. The average is still below 8, but apparently it's going to rocket above that in the next week or two. Again, it's kind of coming in that thing that when the Fed raises rates, it takes time to work into the economy and into mortgages. There's a lag, like maybe 3 to 6 months. So housing market's getting pounded again. Apparently, less than 20% of people can afford to buy homes at the current prices with the current rates. Anyhow, this is Greg Andrick. Take a look at it. Business Freedom Conversation newsletter. I'll catch you on the next one.
Small businesses are not optimistic. More are thinking that business conditions will worsen in the next 6 months, and that is not a good position for small business owners to operate. And the environment is looking challenging, to say the least. Whether it's a few more saying credit conditions are worsening, or they expect credit conditions are worsening, but still inflation and the tight labor market are the two biggest challenges that are facing them right now.
So obviously, Holly, what really helped was being able to pass on price increases. Do small businesses feel confident they can still do that?
Well, it's moderated quite a bit, even though 23% are saying that inflation is their single biggest problem in operating their business. But it is a different picture from what we saw last year, when far more were saying that they were planning, or that they did, increase prices. So with that moderation, we've seen a slowing in their either ability to increase prices, or whether the pressure is not quite as extreme as it once was. But it's still a problem for them to navigate these headwinds that they're facing on that front.
To what extent is this about the cost of capital as well? Is it about the cost of capital, or is it about the availability of capital? What's happening on the credit front and the ability of these businesses to get the credit they need at a reasonable price?
Sure. So they're certainly paying more for financing. We have seen that, the numbers of those who say that they're regular borrowers, that's remained pretty stable over the course of the last few years. So we haven't seen much movement there, which is a good sign that if they're interested in borrowing, they seem to be able to do it. Very few are saying that they haven't been able to access the financing that they're looking for, but certainly the cost of financing has escalated quite a bit for those borrowing, and they're having to absorb those higher costs just like any other input costs for their business.
So Holly, what do you think the roadmap will be then? So they still need labor. Price increases are super tricky. They're still dealing with inflation. Then what's the first thing to drop? Like, do they stop hiring? Do they just eat it in their margins? Like, what's on their checklist after that?
So right now they're absorbing those higher costs through, passing along to customers, but also reduced earning for the owners. That's the first hit for any type of absorbing price increases before they can adjust business operations. But we've seen a bit of a decrease in job openings over the last year. However, this last month we saw an increase in the number or the percent that say that they have a job opening. So that's really strong. We haven't seen any kind of material deterioration in the labor market on the small business side. And, until we see some kind of reduce or decline in that, I suspect that they will still have that as a challenge in trying to hire, but also retain their current workforce. And that's where compensation increases come into play, which is still really elevated for the small business sector, and trying to retain and recruit qualified applicants for those positions and keep their current workforce.
Holly, we've looked at this data before, and there's certainly been a sense of frustration maybe among small business owners that they are not able to deliver on the demand that they are seeing. Is that demand still there? If you look at what is happening in the economy right now, still doesn't feel recessionary. In terms of what they're saying about what the demand picture looks like, what is it? And is this as gloomy as the other aspects of this survey?
Sure. So that is one of the most frustrating areas of business operations, is when you can't take advantage of the sales opportunities that are out there because you don't have the workforce to accommodate for those sales. And so that's still a reality for many small business owners in trying to take advantage of those opportunities and having to, either adjust business operations or scale back, which is certainly one of the bigger frustrations that many small business owners are facing, because, as you said, that the economy is still moving along quite well, and small business owners are trying to take advantage of those opportunities and are having a really difficult time doing it.
So, Holly, the broader conversation is that maybe the Fed is done because they've been able to see the rise in yields that have kind of crimped everything. If the Fed isn't done, or if the Fed kind of just stays here at these levels, what do you think small businesses feel like in the next 6 months?
I think a lot of them are frustrated with the higher cost of financing, but if they have an opportunity to reinvest in their business, they're certainly going to do it if it makes sense with the higher costs and absorbing those higher costs. But, higher financing costs is just one of those inputs, along with inventory and supplies, that are still elevated. And so it's, kind of one of the many components of cost increases that they're having to deal with. And on top of, increased health insurance costs and things like that. So it is a challenge for small business owners. An increase in financing costs is, certainly going to exacerbate that challenge for them. But if there are opportunities, they're certainly not going to miss those, and they'll figure out a way. Small business owners are very resilient in trying to, figure out business operations in these kind of difficult times.